All right, man. Well, here we go with podcast number 2. It's been a busy week here. How about you, Steve?
Yeah. It's been a crazy week full of surprises. Working on a composing contract here right now that I can't speak about, unfortunately, at the
Shh,
moment.
do not speak about it.
But hopefully, I'll be able to share something about it later this month. Made my first taxi submission the other day.
Nice.
Yeah, there was a posting about an artist looking for like lo-fi bedroom pop type stuff. So
That sounds like
submitted a
it.
few tracks to that, which I was stoked about. Off to a good start with Taxi. I did hear back from Audio about payments. For anyone listening to this that didn't hear the last episode, in a nutshell, found out that some of my music catalog was live on Audio. That's audiio.com. It's a royalty-free music library. And after I found out that my music was on there, after initially I thought that we had inadvertently kind of I had sort of burned that bridge because of conflicts over
Right.
content ID. However, my music was there, has been there since March, and I've never received a payout. So reached out to them to get some clarification on that, and they got back to me saying that they only pay out their artists once they pass a threshold of $250, which is fine. You know, I
That's
guess
fair.
I guess what kind of annoys me about it is that there's no metrics on the back end. You can't see the kind of stats you're getting, or like what your downloads are or anything. So kind of disappointing, but only when you compare it to like Artlist and Motion Array, because
Yeah.
when you really think about it, those guys aren't obligated to tell you anything about the download stats. It's literally like a privilege to get that information. And it shows a certain level of gratitude from the company side for their contributors and authors. So when I think, it's unfortunate when there's a lack of transparency. It just
And
feels
you're still waiting for that big art list announcement that should come this month, you think?
if
Or
the
January?
payout should come this month. And they said that they reset the download clock at December 1st. So
That's going to be very interesting.
it'll be really interesting, and I'll definitely chat about that. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But yeah, it is nice when you think about the fact that like they don't owe you. There's no like legality when it comes to like whether or not the company's going to tell you how many downloads you're getting and stuff. So it's nice when you do get that information, and sort of disappointing when you don't, because they've set a standard, I guess in some way. So anyway, music's live on Audio, and we'll see where that goes. I'm happy for it to be there. In other news, I watched the interview that you did with Tamara Bubble, and I also watched a very interesting live stream that the head of Taxi did. I think this is a video that's posted on the website. It's very, very informative. Can you remind me what his name is again? I always forget.
Michael Laskow.
Michael Laskow, right. Cool dude.
Yeah.
So he did this live
Great
stream,
videos.
and it was for new Taxi members. And
Yeah.
I watched that. I thought it was really interesting. There were some really good takeaways from that, as well as your interview with Tamara Bubble that everyone should go watch, by the way.
And my second video on Taxi as well, which I think was a nice response to my first video on Taxi and to a lot of people's first take about Taxi. When you get into a reality, and when I did that interview with that guy, there's some realities that you have to think about when you look at the money versus just, well, the old, I'm not going to pay somebody to pitch to them. And there's a lot more to it than that, I think.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. That's a really good video, and ultimately your second video on Taxi is what sold me on getting a membership. So I'll expand on some thoughts I had about the interview, but I'll pass it over to you, man. What's going on with you?
Well, why don't you also give me your November stock report? Because I'm going to give you my November stock report. I mean, I know we did that in the Discord, but for our podcast audience, let's talk about our stock. And you go first, how things went, because you had a pretty spectacular month in one library.
Yeah, well, it's weird, man, because I look back at my submissions, and I hadn't submitted anything since early September, or sorry, late
To
September.
anywhere?
To anywhere, since early October, I guess.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. Time just flew by. I was like, really? It's been that long, but I hadn't submitted anything anywhere. So no action at all on any libraries except for Emotion Array. So it's interesting. The one track that seems to have really taken off there is a corporate track that I wrote. And it's kind of like a corporate house track. It has kind of like a house electronic beat.
By the way, I meant to tell you, I am absolutely going to use that as a reference track and do an exact copy of that kind of track and put it up to my Motion Array and see because I've had stuff like that get rejected by them that I've done. That sounds just like that.
Right. Well,
I'm just going to have to make sure I use a suspended symbol to start it, apparently.
Yeah, I laughed at that. I saw that in the Discord this morning. I laughed at it because it is something that I've put in like a lot of my tracks. It's just that symbol opening.
I do too.
Man, I don't know what the secret sauce is for these tracks. I just write them, and sometimes they do really well, and sometimes they don't do anything. Usually, it's like the case that the ones that I'm the most stoked about don't do well.
Sure.
But anyway, so this one just kind of blew up, and it's at the top of. I don't know if it still is, but it's algorithmically it's at the top of the list for the corporate category. So anyway, it did well. 1550 I think was the total US dollars for November, which was really
he means 1,500, folks, not $15.50, which is what you usually expect from stock. And I probably did about a third of that across all my libraries, but I approached stock in a different way. My November stock report was my second best of the year, and I've continually averaged about 500 to 600 somewhere across all the libraries. But I approach stock so much differently than anybody. But I even made a few dollars in Dreams Time and in deposit photos. Pond 5 was pretty good, less than $100, but that's a lot for Pond 5, I think. My Motion Array was down a smidge from last month, but still 300-ish, something like that. And then I had some Audio Jungle stuff as well. So I have at least 5 or 6, and if you include Song Trader in that, and I had 6 or 7 libraries pay, and but see, I approach stock so differently than other people approach it because I throw everything in there, anything that I don't write for stock. I write what I write, and I put classical stuff in there. I'll put jazz stuff in there. I'll put solo piano stuff in there. I'll put goofy Christmas stuff, goofy Halloween stuff. I just do my thing. Someone was one of my clients I'm kind of consulting with right now. He's looking to get more into stock, and he had sent something into Motion Array, one song instead of I think you need to send 5 songs into Motion Array, but he sent one song in. He's waiting to hear back, and it was this piano thing that was kind of just a similar idea that was just repeated a bunch of times. He said, I just listened to what they were doing on piano on Motion Array, and I did the same thing. And I never do that. I am terrible at using reference tracks or templates or anything like that. I just make what I want to make. Now, that's sometimes good. You probably have a chance to get a search if you do lots of different things. But I think what you do and what a lot of people do who really focus on a genre, and if you go through your Motion Array channel, there's a bunch of similar type things. So you probably if you get the number one thing there, people see you as an author and they go to your channel and you have more of those kind of things they want. And mine, if they find something they like and they go to my channel, the next thing they find is going to be like the next opposite. So they may not be able to find everything in my library like they could in a library where they're looking for a bunch of lo-fi. I mean, they're looking for a bunch of that to continually use on their videos. And they say, oh, this guy Stevie B, he's always got cool lo-fi and diggable stuff like that. And I mean, it's not that you don't stretch out into other things, but I would say, 60-70% is that similar kind of groovy.
Well, you could, yeah. I mean, there's different genres in there, but they're, I'm writing for I'm writing for like the library. You know what I mean? Like I think that's what you're saying is like I'm not writing
You are.
just whatever
Yeah.
I want and submitting it. I'm writing for success on that
And I'm
library.
writing whatever I want. So I'll just play it that way, and I do that kind of in sync as well, in sync licensing. I write the libraries I want to write and then sell them, and that's not the way Jesse and all them tell you to do it. So, but anyway, I consider that a good bunch of money. If I can get $500-600 a month from just throwing everything that's not being used in sync or not being used or was written for some other reason, and getting somewhere needs a piano version of the national anthem. Somewhere somebody needs a goofy Christmas sounding song or whatever. So, but anyway, still nothing from the Chinese libraries as far as this month, and nothing from, of course, the also RANds, Motion Elements, Music Grid, and Motion Ridge. Not if that's even a thing. Yeah, like I said, I released like you said, I released the video from Artist to Sync Superstar with Tamara Bubble, and that was life-changing. If you're an artist of any kind who has slammed their head against the wall for years as trying to do gigs and trying to busk and trying to just do all sorts of stuff, and you got to read her book too, because it is a spectacular read. What she doesn't do enough that you want is really explain her business, but I think all this was written to get you going, and I think she'll probably write another book about how to run a sync business, probably, knowing her.
Yeah, very motivated individual. I like it. You know, those are the kind of people I like to surround myself with.
It makes you want to be more. I don't find many people that do more than me, but she does. I had some signings this week. I had 2 songs signed to Crucial Music, which is a nice non-exclusive library, and they're very hard to get in. I've probably sent in 20. They only take 3 songs at a time, and it takes them a month or 2 to get back to you. So it's slow going getting stuff in there. And there doesn't seem any rhyme or reason to what they take, but they took 2 different Christmas type of songs. One's a kind of a retro, well, I guess they were both kind of retro Christmas songs. One was more orchestral instrumental, and one was a vocal 60s type. It's time for Christmas again. Yep, that's going to get in your head.
Was it you singing?
Yeah, me and a friend of mine, a singer I use a lot, and we're doing the very Perry Como singers type of thing, you know. And it's a big hit around the house. We sing it all the time for anything. It's time for breakfast again. I mean, we do that that's what we do here. But that makes about 4 out of about 20 submissions I've sent to them, and there have been some big cuts. My friend Ed Hartman, who I did an interview with, he had a big cut in a movie from Crucial. And so, and they're non-exclusive, and it's only a 2-year window for I think it's a 2-year deal. So, pretty cool. And
cool.
Then,
I mean, it's kind of a rarity to have a non-exclusive library in that.
I'm trying to find more of them. I really want to go non-exclusive as much as possible this year, and I'm going to continue feeding my exclusive libraries for sure. As a matter of fact, I got asked to write some new stuff for one of my libraries that's signed, has a deal with Sony BMG, but this deal they just signed a new deal with Universal, and they want me to write some stuff for that. And then I'm also working on a classical piano album for them, and I'm prepping to track starting next week for a country album of all things for them. So that's going on. And then Taxi News, I submitted 7 in November. 1 was forwarded so far. I'm waiting to hear on 4 others. And one of the ones that wasn't forwarded, I've already got in Motion Array, and I'm feeding all the others to my other stock libraries and non-exclusive libraries. I'll probably pitch 1 to Crucial, and I just, it's like anything. You pitch it to Taxi, they don't take it, or it doesn't get forwarded, or even if it does, maybe you go ahead and put it in your library, your non-exclusive libraries. Anything you could take out, you go ahead and keep pitching. But if it doesn't get forwarded, send it off to Crucial Music. If it doesn't go there, send it off over here. There are some that you want to be careful not to forward too much. I did have someone on my Make Music Income YouTube channel ask me if you can submit to multiple stock libraries at the same time, and the answer is absolutely yes. You can't do that with exclusive libraries. You don't want to send exclusive libraries the same album and 5 of them get back to you and you go, oh, I can only choose one. And that can be a recipe for disaster. Yeah. But for non-exclusive stock libraries, you absolutely can. You can apply them all and you can send them all to all the libraries. Sometimes Audio Jungle seems to be one that I have to rename some things sometimes to get stuff in.
Oh man, don't even get me started on their naming conventions. I don't know how many uplifting, inspiring orchestral trailers I have on there. Probably a dozen now.
But other places like Motion Array, they definitely want a title. Pond 5 definitely wants a title. And so I like that better. And other than that, I've got about 5 or 6 taxi submissions to do this month, and I'm using some guest players from Nashville this month. We're doing some things with some percussionists and a bass player. I did a thing the other day with a bass player on it. So doing some different things for taxi. We'll see how that goes this month. And then everything else, Make Music Income video channel, the Discord, which is growing. It's over 200 people running around in there.
I know, man. It's amazing.
And so go to our Discord channel in the show notes below and join up if you're listening to this and you want some community. It's a lot of fun. We talk about all sorts of things in there. And I'm adding channels all the time. I've added a music education channel. I've added the sync licensing channel. I've added the podcast channel. We've got all sorts of channels.
Yeah, I wrote my life story down on the music education or the education.
That was hysterical. Imagine Steve as like Sylvester Stallone in a truck driving across Alaska, the hard drinking truck driving guy. I don't see that. Okay. So that's about the end of my update. I'm starting to prep my consulting stuff, but as you know, trying to come up with, like you do with your Production Music Academy, planning all that and deciding how to do it correctly is a lot of brain power. So I'm still figuring out the consulting package, but I'm working on it. So, and a new website. Oh, and I have clients. So so do you. So, and you teach and all that other stuff. So we do a lot of things, but I think it's important that we talk about what happened to us in this week, because that shows you how busy you can be when you're working hard at this stuff, and all the things that can happen and the opportunities just are myriad. So absolutely. So yeah, speaking of those different streams of income, maybe we should chat a little bit about that. Yeah, let's move into our topic of the day, which is still kind of introducing this podcast, and that is how Steve and I both make music income, not together, not yet, but how we each make music income, and maybe that will help you who are listening to figure out what you can do to make music income based on what we have done and how we got there making that. It might be interesting to say. So we're each going to do our top 5 music incomes, from 5 being to number 1, which is the way we make the most income every month, you want to say? So you go first, because I got to call up my list here.
Well, I don't have a list. I don't have a list written down, but I know what they are. I actually did a video about this a little while ago. It was 7 streams of income, but we'll narrow it down to 5 here. My least, or my smallest stream of music related income would be productiontools.com, which is a website that I run that sells MIDI packs and sample packs, and it's very, very small. I'm working on a bunch of new stuff, but yeah, I love doing it. It's something I don't have a lot of time for. It's something that I've never advertised in terms of, like, I'm never paid for any kind of advertising. It's sort of a hobby in the sense that I don't get a lot of time to do it, but every once in a while I try to put an interesting MIDI or sample pack together. Long-term vision for it is, like, I'd love to create much more elaborate sample packs, as well as like contact instruments, sampled instruments. Like these are all things that I want to get into in the long term. But right now, it just makes enough, basically, that I can I can pay for the website and then some. Like I think I ran a promotion for Black Friday, and I think I made about $100 last month. Not a ton of traffic, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people download the free stuff on the website, so that's cool. There's a lot of freebies there, so go check that out. There's like some free sample packs and free MIDI packs. There's some free composing templates for Logic. So yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress, but I have very limited time to focus on it, and ultimately I'd love to grow it, but also hire people to help me out with it too. I know there's a lot of talented producers out there who do this kind of thing too,
who are doing these MIDI packs and sample packs and all that kind of stuff. I've never really had much interest in doing that, but I can see how that might be an interesting thing to do to make money with, and you can pretty much completely do it by yourself and in your own home studio and all that kind of stuff. You don't need to go anywhere to do it, probably. My number 5 and number 4 are probably even, depending on the month, but number 5 is probably my streaming income from Spotify and all the. See, I have things going back into the late 2000s from CD Baby. So I have CD Baby and DistroKid and Song Trader. I use those 3 distributors, and the odd album sale from time to time on my Bandcamp. I have a jazz group that I've had for a long time, and I've made a lot of music with it, and I have 3 albums out with that, or 4, about 4 or 5 different products, including 2 EPs, and I think 3 full albums. But anyway, and so those sell enough to bring in some Spotify income every month or every other month. CD Baby probably doesn't pay me, but every other month, because I have my thing set at $100. I have to make $100 before they pay me, so it might be a couple months. And then I have a second brand called Quiet Soul Piano, which is just solo piano stuff, and that makes much less, maybe a fourth of what the other one makes. But it's income, it comes in consistently, and it hasn't slowed, and I continue to add albums to it. And so I just made $50 yesterday from a streaming one of my Song Trader accounts where I had some streaming stuff. And it was all off of one song, which is a little fishy because that song has not really been released. It's only been released it's been released on Spotify, but I didn't make a big deal about it that much on social. The only other place it is in one of the sync library, my exclusive sync library. So I'm wondering if it's somehow been heard or placed or something, and I don't know about it yet. That's the thing with sync licensing. I won't know how sync licensing. It's not going to be in these top 5 things because I won't know for probably another 6 months to a year if I had things placed, and until I get either something from my library that when they pay out the upfronts, or my PRO when they pays in the back end. And sometimes you never know you're even on a show until you see those things. Yeah. But streaming income, that continues to be consistent. I've also started to stream a lot of my sync stuff that I'm sending out. And so that's my number 5 right now.
Cool.
And I suppose that a lot of people have streaming income if you're an artist or any kind of producer who's put stuff up to DistroKid or CD Baby or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah. I got a little bit of streaming income trickling in every once in a while. Not very much though. But my streaming numbers went up since I joined Artlist. My streaming numbers shot up, cool. which is very cool.
And if you watch that interview with Tamara, she says she's seeing her streaming grow and grow more as she gets more of these sync licenses on TV
I believe
shows.
that actually because it's a thing because people Shazam your tracks, and then they're also added to these TV shows have their own playlists on Spotify.
Yep.
This is what happened to a track of mine from my band, one of the bands that I play in, Wooden Horseman. We had a placement on a television show, and they had a Spotify playlist, and it got a ton of streams.
Cool.
Not a ton, but it shot up, our monthly listeners shot up all of a sudden. So it was cool. Yeah. And you get a bunch of those, man. You can, hopefully start cashing in on those streams. It takes a lot of streams, obviously, but.
Okay. What's your number 4 income?
Well, number 4, I guess I'll package, the, teaching and gigging into number 4. These are like the physical, activities that I do, that bring in some money. For me, I guess they're about tied in terms of the income that they bring in. I don't have a ton of students. Right now I have like 8 guitar students, and I don't play a ton of gigs either these days. I used to play, all the time, but, yeah, I mean, obviously with COVID and whatever, it's been pretty quiet the last 2 years with that. But lately, I've been doing more gigs. This month, I have like a corporate gig for a Christmas party, which is paying me, all right. And yeah, teaching is like probably brings in a few $100s a month. That packaged with gigs, it's a nice little supplementary piece of income for me. Kind of like pays for like the groceries and all the bills and the gas and stuff like that. It's nice, and it's a physical thing, like I go out to other people's houses to teach. So it's nice to get out of my apartment, my studio here, and like go and actually communicate with other people and go to gigs and like and get out and be social. So I kind of think of them in the same sense. Yeah. And that would be my number 4, I guess.
Cool. My number 4 is, and speaking of teaching, that is something that I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this podcast, that is maybe even number 3, 2, or 1 for them, who are teachers, music teachers. And I think, any music income is good music income. And music teaching is hopefully something I hope to get into myself after finishing my master's in May. And but I'm sure it's a major income for a lot of people. I know a few of my clients actually make their 100% of their living basically that way. Yeah, I know this guy has 45 students. My number 4 is royalties and publishing, which I kind of put together because that's what they are. And sometimes they're bigger or less than streaming income. But that's, this is stuff from BMI or publishing that sometimes you get publishing royalties from Sound Exchange. Sometimes I get publishing royalties from a Song Trader for different things. Now we have the MLC, which is in the United States, which is the Mechanical Licensing Collective, and they are now collecting around the world royalties for your mechanicals. In other words, you used to only be able to get those things. When you see CD Baby Pro, which is their publishing, or you see Song Trust or whatever, I don't know if you've seen these places, but their big thing is we collect all your mechanical royalties that your PROs are missing, because your PROs only collect performance royalties. Well, the MLC was put together to start collecting those Spotify and different royalties that are in other countries and different places performance-wise. It was part of the big initiative, that bill that passed in the States about, making sure musicians get paid more fairly and stuff, and all that stuff is tracked. So now, so far that's made me literally pennies as far as I can tell, or a few bucks maybe. I don't even think I've made enough for them to send me a check yet. But that's one of the publishing royalties, and sometimes that can be bigger. And this one, my PRO especially, is one I'm expecting to grow as sync licensing. The stuff that's that I've got in libraries now starts to get placed, and then I have back end royalties there. So that could become, hopefully, my second income mostly, but we'll see. So that's number 4 for me.
Awesome.
What's number 3? It's time for number 3.
Number 3 would, it's a new one for me, but it's this last year. Number 3 would technically be course creation, and yeah, well into COVID, I was like kind of sitting around wondering what I should do with my extra time, because I wasn't really focusing on gigging anymore, yeah, I thought, what the heck, I'll make a little course about, what I know on music production. And the first one I did was sort of like a hybrid orchestral trailer kind of thing. And I mean, it was a lot of work because I'd never done anything like that before. And it took me 3 times. I like scrapped the first 2 that I did. And then I finally put it out, and it did pretty good. Now I'm 4 courses deep. I'm about to do the 5th one.
And are these all part of your? Do you include the Production Music Academy in this? Is this part of that income stream?
Production Music Academy is so new. I mean, it only just launched a month ago, but yeah, I mean, before that, it was all being done through Teachable, and right. there was some interest in it, and it did pretty good. I think that I kind of established a bit of a rapport with everyone who took the first course, and so a lot of people that took the first course took the second course. And they're all, on different, genres of music, and I got a lot more planned for the next year, which are all being released through the Academy.
So tell me, as someone who has not set up a course before, I mean, I've walked through Teachable before and stuff like that. But for instance, with your Production Music Academy course, Intro to Music Licensing, do you set that up inside the Academy, and is the Academy on a certain server, on a certain kind of software now? Is that the Mighty Networks?
Yeah, Mighty Networks is the host for all things the Academy does, and there's different types of packages you can get with Mighty Networks. You can just pay for to have like a membership site, but there's also a tier which includes the membership, plus you're able to host courses within that membership site. So that's what I'm paying for. And yeah, you can do all sorts of things in it. It's so far my experience with Mighty Networks has been pretty good.
And again, just because I'm a dummy in this, and other people might want to know this who are listening, you can, and by the way, there's a link below in the description if you want to find out more about the Production Music Academy. But it's basically just different sections that are videos, right? They're all just videos.
It's video content. Yeah, it's video content, but it's also, there's like some PDFs and stuff that are like lists of like, my recommended sample libraries and plugins to use for a certain genre. Some written material, but mostly 99% it's video content. Yeah.
And that's what you've seen from Daniel and other people as well. Is that
yeah. Well, Daniel's course was the one that really got me thinking. I mean, his because he has like a kind of like a full on course for like getting started, getting your foot in the door with like stock music licensing. And I looked at the curriculum that he had and the way that he put it together, and I thought that was like a great idea. So he kind of was, I have to give him credit for kind of getting the ball rolling with the course stuff. I'm just like, it's interesting that he's done that. I should give it a shot. But of course, mine is like focused on production, squarely on production.
And just in case anyone doesn't know, when we say Daniel, we talk about him all the time. Like, you should know who he is. But in case you don't, and maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you may not, but we're talking about Daniel of stockmusiclicensing.com, and you need to check out his site and his video channel on YouTube, especially if you are thinking about starting into the stock music licensing game. He's the man. He's just the man. I mean, we're also the guys, but he's the real man about this, and he has been doing this for a very long time, much longer than I have. I don't know about you, Steve, but he's been in this for years and years and years.
He's been at it forever, man, and he's been pretty much documenting his journey from the start too, which is so cool. From
complete failure to doing pretty dang well now. So yeah,
I love the fact that it took him an entire year to get his first sale on Audio Jungle. I mean, you got to give him credit for the tenacity, man. Like that's awesome.
Well, speaking of stock music licensing, this happens to go right into my number 3, because that's number 3 income for me right now is stock music licensing. Non-exclusive music licensing. To me, licensing is all licensing, but I'm talking about stock licensing that you would put in behind a YouTube video or might be used in a presentation. And that's one kind of licensing that is very good to get into. I did discover a new kind of music licensing you may have seen on some channels, and that is game music. And there's a whole subgenre of videos and people into that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about, well, yeah, I guess I am talking about gaming in any kind of genre, but there are stock gaming music sites. I hadn't even thought about that. So that's something maybe we should investigate one time and say, is there a way to make income here?
There is. I think it's quite a bit different than the whole stock
well, that
royalty-free
might be
library.
there's a guy who really focuses on this. His name is Steve Mellon, I think.
Yes.
His name, or Malin or something like that. And he might be a good guy to interview sometime for this channel. But that's another kind of quote unquote stock music that you can sell probably, and maybe even non-exclusively. And but that has taken over for me this year as far as stock music, as far as an income stream. A year ago, I did not have this income stream. It would have taken several clients to make up the income stream I'm now getting from stock every month just by all the stuff I have in there. I keep feeding that stock music library every month on purpose with anything that I make for any reason, unless it's for an exclusive pitch or something like that. But yeah, that's that. And I wouldn't say it's growing, but I am getting paid more consistently from Pond 5. I'm seeing the dancing bear. When you get a sale with Pond 5, you get this little email with this little dancing bear GIF, and he dances around, and you're like, oh, and it's almost like you have this reaction because there's so few times you get paid, you get a sale on Pond 5. It's almost
I have
like,
not seen the dancing bear.
You haven't seen the dancing polar bear?
In a while. No, I'm just saying I miss the dancing bear. He hasn't come around into my inbox in quite some time.
Oh, it's always a treat.
But I haven't fed the dancing bear in quite a while. So in fairness, he's probably a little upset with me.
One of mine was a broadcast one, so it was like an $80 Pond 5 sale, which is shocking. If I was doing a video right now, I'd put in a little video of Will Ferrell from Elf going shocking. But anyway, yeah, stock music is number 3 for me. What about number 2 for you?
Well, stock music is number 2 for me.
Perfect.
And yeah, it's climbed up the charts this last year. Yeah, I've done.
When did you start?
I guess it's been about. Technically, it's been about like five years since I
didn't know that.
Started doing it but I took a long break where I wasn't doing anything in that realm. But I started working for a friend of mine who started a little boutique production library. And that's when it really started. That's when I first started to do kind of like sync tracks. So since that was probably around 5, maybe more, but around 5 years ago. But then long period of time went by where I didn't. I never even was. I wasn't aware of stock music libraries at all. Someone brought this up at a show, backstage at a show. I was doing a show with this guy who was a saxophonist, and he was also a composer, and he had a few credits for film scores and stuff like that. And we were just talking, and he mentioned that he'd put up some of his music on Audio Jungle back in the golden age of Audio Jungle, and he he went from like $0 to $2,000 a month like almost immediately, and I was just like, damn, really? I was like, never heard of it. I was like, so I checked it out. I gave it a shot and submitted some tracks, and I started to earn about like $200 or $300 a month, like right off the bat, from Audio Jungle, and I was shocked, and that led me to looking up some more information about it on YouTube. I found Daniel's channel, and then the rest was history. Here I am. So fast forward to today, I have my music in about 5-6 different libraries, and this last year was really good. Motion Array accounts for a big chunk of that income, and I'm expecting a payout like we were talking about earlier from Artlist, which I'll definitely chat about and make.
Yeah, and that episode we should really talk about Artlist and MusicBed and all that next level of still, it probably could be considered stock music, but it's almost stock music mixed with Spotify, mixed with licensing. I mean, it's different than Audio Jungle or even Motion Array.
And
So
this is something, yeah, this is something I talk about in the intro to music licensing course. Is it's like understanding what a music library's brand is, because there's so many different types, and you're getting something totally different when you go to Audio Jungle and Artlist. Most people are aware of that.
and they're all different. I mean, Motion Array is completely different than Pond 5 or Audio Jungle.
Totally different, but they're all, at the end of the day, they're all royalty-free music libraries.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
they're all doing the same thing, just different branding and different different sort of flavors.
All right. Number 2, for me, and this is probably going to go up and then down here soon in what I do, but is music consulting, basically, where I work with artists, songwriters, composers, producers, and different people to help their career wherever it is to wherever they want to go. We joined forces for a while, and you could call me a coach, you could call me a record label consultant, whatever you want to do. It depends on what the person's trying to do. Right now, I do consulting for artists who want to release music, and they want to write music, produce music, and then release music and market that music. And so I walk with them through all those steps as a consultant, and sometimes the producer, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then with a composer, let's say, they might be someone who's never composed for stock music and they want to get to the stock music world, or they want to get into the sync licensing world and they need to learn the rules for that, or they're songwriters and they just want to write better songs. So all of that is music consulting, a lot of career consulting, but my consulting can be anything. When I'm talking with somebody on Zoom, one day we can be totally focused on the songs they've done and really going piece by piece through the song. Another day, we could just be shooting it about what they want to do and how to get there and what the next steps are. Or we can be talking about if they need to go to Nashville and do some production, or if they need to buy some software or whatever it is. I mean, it's just a different thing for every single person. And that's why for me, and we talked about this off air, but for me, it's hard to come up with an academy or even courses, because sometimes I feel like any information I put down, unless it's really basic information, like this is how you upload to Pond 5, that can be for anybody, but this is how you can have a successful career. I think that's a hard course to make, because I don't know who you are and what your background is and what your talents are. And unless I know that and talk with you personally, I can't do that. So I see other people doing coaching and consulting, and and there's only so many hours of the day. So how in the world do you do more than a certain? It's like teaching students. How would you do? You have 8 students. How would you live if you had 50? I mean, it would be like then there wouldn't be enough hours in the day to do those kind of things. So consulting is number 2 for me. It could go up to number 1 here shortly. But then as a matter of fact, after we're done with these, I want to talk about the list as we'd like to see it here in just a minute. But that's number 2 for me. What's number 1 for you? I think it.
No, that's cool. I think the consulting stuff is really, really interesting. I don't do any of that. And I think that's.
Will you offer that in the academy at all?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Plans?
I simply just don't have the time for it.
Yeah.
But I would like to do that, and I think what makes it interesting is that it's so subjective, right? It's like you said, you can't teach a course about that because there's so many roads that one can take to success, and everyone's different, and
so different.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Number 1 for me is just custom work, like getting composing
music production
work, film scoring, working for advertisements, whatever it is. That's number 1 for me, and it has been for a few years now.
And who are those clients? Are they just people that you know? Are they companies? Are they libraries? Who are these people?
It's companies. It's companies, and I've been really lucky.
Personal relationships.
Yeah, so I've established a good working relationship with Patagonia over the years, and they've sent me a lot of work. They have a food division called Provisions. And so I've done a lot of work for them over the last few
Cool.
years. And through working with them, I've also kind of done, I've also, that's led to other gigs, and it kind of, kind of trickles down, and other people have seen the work, and I scored a film about a year and a half ago that hasn't been released yet. So I can't really talk about that. But yeah, those kinds of those kinds of jobs are what keep me afloat. And
is that monthly income that they pay you? Are you on any kind of monthly payment, or they just pay you big payments, chunks at a time?
No, that's what's interesting. Is like, that's what I was saying kind of earlier in the podcast, is that we like it could kind of think of it as annual, because it's taken up to a year to get paid for some of these contracts. Like, wow. Some of them are very, very long projects, where the money's really good, but they might give me an advance in some cases, but like the entire job just takes so long, and that can happen.
And but you're not a one income family as well, right? You're not married yet, right?
No, I'm planning that out as we speak. That's another full-time job.
Are you engaged? Are you guys planning a wedding? Awesome.
Yeah, we're engaged.
But still, you're a two income family, and that's what pays for things. And that's good to know, because a lot of people, especially people who might be listening to this podcast, are going, okay, but I need to support my whole family on this with music, and without another income. No, my wife's a stay-at-home mom, let's just say, or my husband's a stay-at-home husband, and I'm a full-time music person. That I have the responsibility of bringing in the bacon, or as you would say in Canada, the Canadian bacon. But anyway, the back bacon, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, you guys don't have that down there, do you?
No, I don't even know what it is.
It's a different cut from the pig.
Oh, okay. Well, sounds good to me.
It's good, man.
Anything with bacon, that's all I need to know. But speaking of bringing in the bacon, the number one thing for me, the way I make music income and have for the last 21 years, is basically being known as a music producer and producing music for people, for jobs, at one point it was for jingles, and it was when I first started, and for local scores, local companies that needed not just jingles but music behind, similar to what you're doing for this company, and that paid very well. But then the indie revolution kind of hit hard, especially in the genres that I was in, which were studio, but certainly in the gospel world and the jazz world, and I've always been in those kind of genres. But yeah, that's what I've done for 21 years, and that's been the main thing. It kind of blends with my consulting, because the consulting is built in. So when a client's paying me, let's say $300-400 a month to work for them, they're getting consulting and like basically have a label to guide them along from writing to production to marketing and to releasing. But I'm also a lot of times actively being the producer who is either playing the keyboards or programming or mixing or doing background vocals, any one of those things, or contracting players, having it mixed by engineers in Nashville or players in paid singers in Nashville. Anything that I have to do to produce the music and get it done, I do cross over into that producer hat. And sometimes it's just executive producer, and I just hire a producer. But still, it's music production, and then again, we get into the marketing side, and that's more into the consulting kind of thing. So those one and two really mix a lot for me, but that's the majority of my income. None of the other three things pay the bills. And my wife does work part-time, and so she certainly is a linchpin in this, because she brings in some cash and stuff like that. But I would say this is our main income, all that I do, and that's how we pay the mortgage and all those kind of bigger bills, is through music production, and or I would say through music sources, all these combined. Now, let me start off with how I'd like my 5 to go, and this won't be a long section, but I would like, number one, to be upfronts and sync payments. I would like to be getting placements where I'm getting $1,000 and $2,000 or higher placements every month from different from different films or different TV shows or different ads. That's what I'd like to be, number one. And number two is my BMI checks. I would like that to be number two, my PRO payments, and be completely paying all the bills that I pay now on that. And then probably underneath that, consulting will be there likely, because I will always teach in some way. I enjoy helping people and teaching people, and so do you, obviously. And it's just it's good to share that knowledge, and it's hard not to, especially real experience. And if I do have those one and two incomes that are sync licensing based, believe me, I'm going to have to talk to people about how I did that, because they're going to want to know what the journey was and how to get there. And then I don't plan to stop doing stock music. That's fun to do. Stock is what I consider B and C library type stuff. I don't consider it B or C music. It's still high quality music, but it's so low paying and so iffy, depending on how these libraries decide to close down or whatever, that you can't necessarily depend on it. But hey, it's nice extra income. It's like a part-time job, so I'll keep that up. And then streaming income should also rise from having licensing things and people Shazamming songs they hear on a TV show and finding that. So that's how I hope things flow. How about you?
Yeah, similar. And I was going to make this the same point about the sync or the stock music stuff. In an ideal world, number one would remain what it is, which is custom composing. I love doing it. It brings in good money, and I feel confident about it, and it's something I truly enjoy doing. I'm very passionate about it. I'd love to do more film scoring for like indie films or even like bigger films if it comes to that. But I love writing music for jingles for ads too, and advertisement agencies and that kind of thing. I'm passionate about it. It's really fun. So hopefully that will continue to be number one. I'm totally happy with that remaining at the top. But number two, if it became number one, sync licensing, like you said, upfront fees. If that became my number one source of income, I certainly wouldn't complain. I'd love that. I'd be really happy.
I see all that together, Steve. Stock, sync, production for clients. All of that is composing income.
It is. That's a good point, and and it's all kind of exactly. It's all under the same roof, and so which is to say that as long as I'm kind of like I'm able to sit down at my studio desk here and like write music, and then I'm happy. Ultimately I'm happy. Exactly. I think what at the end of the day, what I'm less passionate about is teaching. I love my students, and it's no knock against them, but like. That if that were to go down to number five, or like if I stopped doing it, I wouldn't.
Or if you only taught through your academy. Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, and sorry, and to be specific, I'm talking about guitar, teaching guitar, because in terms of teaching production, I love that. That I'm much more passionate about the production work I'm doing these days. I love playing guitar, obviously, but I'm finding it difficult to work in the guitar lessons into my schedule these days with everything else going on. Another ideal scenario would be streaming income. If I was able to boost the profile of my Spotify or whatever, and I was getting a heavy number of streams, that would be super cool, man. I would love it if that was bringing in thousands of dollars a month or something like that. That'd be incredible.
So I think we're basically just like what most listeners are to this podcast, and most people on Discord, and most people who watch our video channels. We're composers who just want to make our full income composing and getting it out there. That's the way we want, and then underneath of that, sharing our experience. And I think that's what this podcast is going to be. When we say make music income, I think everybody wants to make music income making the music they want to make. And to me, that's what my whole channel was about, was follow my journey. And this podcast is about follow our, Steve and I's journey as we separately work through similar types of music making and music income making, and that's I think the best that we can do is give you our personal experience week by week, and video by video, and podcast by podcast, and just showing you how it's working or not working for us. And I think that's the key. And you can listen to lots of people like us who are doing the same thing. It's the people that talk about it without doing it that I would watch out for. But that's the only thing I don't really like.
Yeah, and it's good to like chat about this and state the like in kind of goal set. You know what I mean? By like talking about what we would like to see as number one, because I think that we'll get there. You know, I'm confident that we'll get there. And I'm touching on something that you mentioned earlier there about how the kind of flaky nature of stock music, and almost in a weird way, even though it's become like the number two source of income for me, I sort of feel like it's like a bit of a fairy tale. I hate to sound like I'm cynical about it, because I think I'm going to have a good year next year too. Like, I'm optimistic about it, but
yeah,
but too. In many ways, I do feel like it's maybe not as sustainable as some people think. I mean, it's changed so dramatically in the last few years alone. I mean, we've seen these like massive shifts, on Audio Jungle, and look, I mean, I had a good year, but at the end of the day, it's like the income goes up and down. I have good months and bad months. There's not a ton of consistency there. I think, like I said, I'm optimistic about it, but realistically, the way I'm looking at everything is like the real money is in these composing contracts, and it's in like sync licensing, and which is a long-term game. It's a long-term game, and it took me, years and years to establish the relationships that I have today, and it will take me more years from now before I start seeing, big PRO income from and sync, upfront sync fees. I mean, these are just things that, like, you talk about this a lot. They just take time and takes patience, in the same way it took a lot of patience for me to find the composing work, right? So, yeah, but I mean, in terms of stock licensing, it's a great foot in the door, though, and that has been a great introduction into the sync licensing world. But I do feel that it's subject to change all the time, and there's not a lot of consistency there, and there's no guarantee that Motion Array is going to keep paying me every month. There's anything can change. So
we all got scared a few months ago they were going to move to a yearly pay model, and that would really change a lot of people's monthly incomes. And well, I think this has been a really cool discussion, and I hope that people out there are getting something out of this, and really understanding the realities of making a music income, especially if it's going to be your only income. I know a lot of people who listen to this have day gigs, and from time to time I have day gigs. I have a church gig or a teaching gig or something like that. And so, but music income is, talk about stock music's being iffy. The entire music business is iffy. And so you could lose any job tomorrow that you're doing for music when some client or somebody just decides they don't need to do it, because it's not as important as COVID or whatever world event that's going on. So but don't want to end on a low note. I think there's so many opportunities to make income out there, especially in licensing this more and more, and it's only growing, especially sync licensing. That world and opportunities are only growing. That's why you see so many people looking at it and talking about it, is because while we're sitting here, 100 more TV shows have been planned.
I want to end on a positive note myself here, because I did want to, and I won't drag this on too long, but I did want to mention that there was one takeaway I had from your interview with Tamara, and also the taxi video that I watched for new members. My real takeaway from that is that, like, you have to build catalog, and in order to build catalog, you need to just you need to write, bounce, submit, and repeat. There's no time for waiting around for a response. There's no time for listening back to your work. Like, like there's just no time to just get it out the door.
As Tamara said, don't be too precious with each song, Don't treat it as like this precious treasure that you can't let go of. Get it done, finish it, like it, and then move on. If you need someone to listen, there are Discord groups and there are different things, and you can get feedback in a lot of different ways. And guess what? Taxi is going to be feedback for you. They're going to tell you why it's not acceptable for this. It's going to be a great learning experience, if nothing else.
You need to keep the train rolling, and this idea of like getting past this perfectionist mindset can be applied to other aspects of your life too, and like not just music composition and production. Like put that same philosophy to work with regards to networking as well. Send out emails to people, try to make some connections, but don't wait around for an answer. Yep. Like 99% of the time you don't hear back, or it's rejection. That is the nature of the arts industry in general. It's just it's a lot of rejection, and there's a lot of people like you doing the same thing. So you can't wait around in an anxious state waiting for that response. The way I got my foot in the door with composing was like I wrote a director. I saw someone's work that I really liked. It was like, long story short, a friend of mine showed me a video and I loved it so much that I just sent the director. I found her online and sent her a friendly email, just being like, hey, I really enjoyed your work, and my name's Steve and I write music. Like, love to work with you sometime. That simple, short, sweet. I heard back from her a year later.
Yeah.
I didn't wait around for her. Like I never expected a response in the first place.
Yeah, and I think many of us have done that before. I remember back when I was a teenager or 20-something, I would write a song and I'd send it to a publisher and I would wait. And I would wait and I'd wait and I'd wait. But I was always a pretty prolific writer, so I was always creating new things. Catalog is paramount. More and more catalog. Songwriters come to me and say, oh, I've got these 10 songs. I'm like, well, how many more do you have? Oh, that's all I have. You've got to have hundreds of songs. And I think that goes for all of these things: streaming income, royalties, stock music, any kind of sync licensing you're going to do. You better have a huge catalog. And that's not meant to drag you down and say, oh, I don't have enough. That's meant to inspire you to make more songs. Always have more song ideas going. Join Taxi and just write for the briefs, if nothing else, or work with a partner who you write things together with, and just write more catalog.
Yeah, and don't worry if the songs suck. Like the process of repeating this over and over again will make you better. Like no one started out being like a great composer or a great music producer. No one. Like it just takes time. Like when I listen to some of the work I did like 2 years ago, it makes me cringe. But it's the idea that you just need to get it out. You need to get it done and move on. Yeah, absolutely. So don't be precious.
Absolutely. And then find ways to make these your music income, like we've been talking about today. And I'll try to put all the links to the different things we've talked about in the show notes below of the podcast. You can now find this podcast on all the major podcasts, especially Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but you can also find it now on Google Podcasts. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it pretty much, it seems like the RSS feed is sending it everywhere now, and I've put us in the main places. So if you can also just go straight to our Anchor page, and that is also in the show notes down below if you'd rather listen online. So thanks so much for listening, and Steve, great stuff, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, great chat. See you next week.
Okay. All right.
Bye, guys.